Is being recorded.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Meal Talk webinar on local school wellness policies. My name is Mimi Wu, and I am with Child Nutrition Programs at the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food and Nutrition Service. My co-presenters and I are so excited to have all of you with us today. Before we begin, let's go over some housekeeping tips. So this webinar is being recorded and will be posted at a later date. We'll also be posting the slides from today at a later date. Everyone who registered for this webinar will receive an email once the recording and the slides are available. This webinar is also being live captioned. So to view the live captioning, use the multimedia viewer. It should appear automatically. It's probably on the right side of your screen, or you can click on the three dots on the bottom right of your screen and then select multimedia viewer. Then click continue. You should be able to then view the live captioning, and then you can use the controls located at the bottom of the multimedia viewer to change your view settings. If you can't see the multimedia viewer, no worries. Just go ahead and send a comment through the question and answer box, and our web team will send you a link to access the captioning. During today's presentation, some of our links will be shared using a QR code, so you might want to have your smartphone nearby to scan these codes. You'll also be getting an email tomorrow with all the websites that we talk about during today's webinar. If you stayed for the entire webinar today, you'll also get an email with a certificate of participation on Wednesday, August 31st. If you're watching a webinar with multiple people, you'll be able to print a certificate for each person. We will have time at the end of this webinar to take questions. The chat box is disabled for this webinar, but you can use the question and answer box at any time during the webinar to enter your questions. So this Meal Talk webinar series was created under USDA's Team Nutrition initiative. Team Nutrition supports USDA's Child Nutrition Program, which includes the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, and the Summer Food Service Program, by developing nutrition education resources to help children gain the knowledge, skills, and motivation to make healthy food and physical activity choices as part of a healthy lifestyle. Team Nutrition also provides training and technical assistance to child nutrition professionals to enable them to prepare and serve nutritious meals that appeal to students. And finally, Team Nutrition provides technical resources to support healthy environments for schools, childcare, and summer meal sites. So our wonderful panel of speakers today include Kim Visioni, who is a nutritionist with Team Nutrition here in USDA's Child Nutrition Program. We also have two speakers from South Carolina's Local Wellness Policy State Technical Assistance Team. We have Dr. Juanita Bowens, who is an Education Associate at the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Health and Nutrition. And we also have Erica Ayers, who is a school wellness consultant at the Division of Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity Prevention at the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Our fourth speaker is Nicole Good, who is the school wellness specialist at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in the Office for Food and Nutrition Programs. So today's agenda is based on hot topics and questions that we have received from the school nutrition community, including questions about local school wellness policy requirements, ideas for getting community members involved, how to get buy-in from administrators, students, and others in the school community, how to conduct a triennial assessment, and best practices for implementing local school wellness policies. So today we'll start with an overview of local school wellness policy requirements and resources, and we'll be sharing some new and exciting materials and existing materials from Team Nutrition that you can use to energize, strengthen, and assess your local school wellness policies. After that, we'll hear about wellness policy efforts in South Carolina, followed by wellness efforts and activities led by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We will have time for questions and answers at the end of today's presentation. And as I stated earlier, please feel free to drop your questions at any time into the Q&A box throughout the presentation. Okay, so with all of that, I will turn it over to our first speaker, Kim Visioni, and I will see you all again at the end of our during our questions and answers section. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mimi, and hello, everyone. Again, my name is Kim Visioni, and I am a nutritionist in the Nutrition, Education, Training, and Technical Assistance Division of Child Nutrition Programs at the USDA's Food and Nutrition Service. We all know that schools play a vital role in the lives of children and are where children spend much of their day. Schools are an important setting for providing children with a healthy environment where they can consume nutritious meals, snacks, and beverages, get regular physical activity, and learn about the importance of lifelong healthy behaviors. Local school wellness policies are an essential tool in establishing, maintaining, and evaluating healthy school environments that promote student health and wellness. They also play a significant part in improving nutrition security. Nutrition security is consistent access to safe, nutritious food that supports optimal health and well-being through all stages of life. The school meals programs and the people that help implement them play a critical role in national efforts to improve children's nutrition security. We also know there are many benefits to helping students establish healthy eating habits. Better nutrition supports students' growth, health, physical activity, and is even associated with how well students do academically in school. Better health equals better learners, and we all want better learners. So let's discuss how we can work together to make it easier for our students to be healthy. I'll share some of the team nutrition resources that will help you implement, assess, and share your wellness policies. Let's start with the polling question to see how much you already know about wellness policies. Okay, so I'll read the question out loud, and then you can click on the answer choice in the poll that should have popped up on your screen. Then click Submit. If you can't submit your answer, no worries, you can type it in the Q&A box. Our question is, which of the following is true of local school wellness policies? You can choose more than one answer. Your options are A, it is required by the federal government if your school participates in the National School Lunch Program. B, it is optional for schools interested in wellness. C, every 3 years, school districts must assess how well they are meeting the nutrition and wellness goals in their policy. D, districts do not have to inform the public about their wellness policy. Okay, so I'll give you a few more seconds. And 3, 2, 1. Great job. I'm seeing a lot of correct answers. The correct answer is A and C. Local school wellness policies are required by the federal government if a school participates in the National School Lunch Program and/or School Breakfast Program. Also, districts must assess how well they're meeting the nutrition and wellness goals in their policy every 3 years. This is referring to the triennial assessment, which we'll speak more about later. Districts are also required to inform the public about their wellness policy, and we'll talk about that a bit later as well. As I just mentioned, local school wellness policies are required if a school participates in the National School Lunch Program and/or School Breakfast Program. A local school wellness policy is a written document that guides a local educational agency's or school district's efforts to establish a school environment that promotes students' health, well-being, and ability to learn. For this presentation, I'll use the term school districts to mean all local education agencies that are required to have wellness policies. So let's do another polling question to get us started on the federal requirements. And again, I'll read this question together with you, and then you can click on the answer choice in the poll that should have popped up on your screen. Then click Submit. If you can't submit your answer, you can type it in the Q&A box. Our question says, according to federal requirements, a local school wellness policy must have which of the following components? Choose all that apply. Your options are A, specific goals for nutrition, promotion, and education. B, nutrition guidelines for foods and beverages sold in school. C, standards for all foods and beverages provided but not sold in school. And D, school cleaning protocols. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. Great job again. The correct answer is A, B, and C. A local school wellness policy must meet specific requirements, including goals for nutrition promotion and education activities. It must also include nutrition standards and guidelines that are consistent with federal regulations for foods and beverages sold and provided to students in school. A wellness policy can include school cleaning protocols, but it's not required by federal regulation. The responsibility for developing a wellness policy is placed at the local level, so districts have the flexibility to customize their individual wellness policy based on their own specific circumstances. And while districts have this flexibility to develop specific content in their policies, such as the cleaning protocols, the policies must include the federal guidelines. So for the federal guidelines, in addition to specific goals for nutrition promotion and education activities, a wellness policy must also include goals for physical activity and other school-based activities that promote student wellness. Also, nutrition guidelines for all foods and beverages sold to students must be consistent with federal regulations for school meal nutrition standards and smart snacks and school standards. The standards for foods and beverages provided but not sold to students apply to classroom parties, snacks brought by parents, or food given as incentives. Wellness policies must also limit marketing and advertising to only those foods and beverages that meet smart snacks and school nutrition standards. In this past May, Team Nutrition released an updated version of a guide to smart snacks in school. This new version includes updated information about the types of milk that meet smart snack standards in accordance with the new Child Nutrition Program's transitional standards for milk, whole grains, and sodium. This publication is designed for anyone who sells foods or drinks to students outside of the school meals programs on the school campus during the school day. This includes people overseeing school vending contracts, school snack bars, and fundraising involving the sale of foods or beverages on the school campus. It's available online at the web address you see on the screen, and printed copies are now available. Another federal requirement is that districts must establish wellness policy leadership to ensure each school complies with the policy. The wellness policy leader can be at the school level, such as a school principal or vice principal, or at the district level, such as a school nutrition director. Districts must also permit general public and school community participation in the wellness policy process. The school community includes parents, students, physical education teachers, school administrators, and others. Participation from all parts of the community is important for sharing ideas, recommending policy updates, and establishing new goals. Team Nutrition has a local school wellness policy outreach toolkit, which helps inform the school community about your wellness policy and engaging stakeholders. This toolkit helps close the communication gap by increasing awareness and providing specific examples of how parents and school staff can get involved. You can find the toolkit at the web address on the screen. Another federal requirement is the triennial assessment. As you already know from our first polling question, districts must conduct an assessment of the wellness policy every 3 years at a minimum. The triennial assessment determines how well the school district is complying with its wellness policy, how the policy compares to model wellness policies, and progress made in attaining the goals of the policy. The first triennial assessments were due on June 30th, 2020, but due to the pandemic and public health emergency, FNS issued nationwide waivers delaying the deadline. For school year 22-23, states had the option to request an individual waiver, delaying the triennial assessment deadline under Section 12L of the National School Lunch Act. So if a state elected to use this waiver, districts have until June 30th, 2023 to complete their first triennial assessments. Later in the webinar, the South Carolina and Massachusetts teams will speak more about how they use their assessments as a tool for sharing best practices and finding areas where training and technical assistance is needed. Federal regulations also require school districts to update or modify the wellness policy as appropriate. In addition, districts must inform the public about the wellness policy, including any updates, at least on an annual basis, and they must inform the public about the triennial assessment, including progress toward meeting the goals of the policy. All of these federal requirements that I reviewed today can be found in the final rule for local school wellness policies online at the web address on the screen. In order to support districts in updating, strengthening, and assessing their policies, Team Nutrition has updated our local school wellness policy tools and resources webpage. The webpage includes triennial assessment resources, example model policies, wellness committee resources, and our brand new infographic about local school wellness policies and our school nutrition environment quiz, which I'll talk about in a few seconds. In partnership with Team Nutrition, the Institute of Child Nutrition has also updated their child nutrition sharing site with new local school wellness policy resources developed by organizations and state agencies. These resources can be filtered by nutrition education and wellness activities, as well as policy implementation and triennial assessment materials. You'll find a lot of great tools and best practices among these resources. And remember, if you have any resources to share, please use the web address on the screen. The CNSS has a link for submitting resources at the top of their webpage. So now let's talk about Team Nutrition's new infographic on local school wellness policies. As Mimi mentioned earlier, we received many comments and questions from the school nutrition community, including how to renew local school wellness policies after so many schools have been closed due to the pandemic. In response to these questions, we created an infographic titled Local School Wellness Policy Refresh. This infographic gives tips on how you can renew your wellness policy and bring your school community together to create a strong school environment. It provides ideas and resources for districts to renew, strengthen, energize, and nourish their wellness policy efforts. You'll hear from our speakers from South Carolina and Massachusetts on various ways they incorporate these tips in real-life scenarios in their states. The infographic is available in both English and Spanish and was just released yesterday. Another resource I'm excited to share is our new school nutrition environment web quiz. This quiz includes 10 questions about how healthy food and beverage choices at schools support students' learning, growth, and health. It's a fun way to start a conversation about the school nutrition environment and wellness policies. It can also be used to liven up a training or promote nutrition education on your social media channels or website. As I mentioned earlier, the infographic and the quiz are available on Team Nutrition's local school wellness policy tools and resources webpage. And they're also part of Team Nutrition's Back to School online toolkit, which you can find at the web address you see on the screen. You'll also find lots of other great resources on this page to help schools build a healthier school nutrition environment, as well as nutrition education ideas for students and families, and training tools for school nutrition professionals. So now I want to thank you all for your time and attention. If you have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A box and we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. I'll now turn it over to Juanita and Erica to share more about local school wellness policies in South Carolina.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juanita Bowens, and I am the local wellness policy liaison between South Carolina Department of Education and the school food authorities. My co-presenter today is Erica Ears, school wellness consultant for the Division of Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity Prevention at South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. We are delighted to have this opportunity to share our local wellness policy experiences with you today. Special thanks to USDA and the Southeast Regional Office for this opportunity to share with you today. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Today, we will share with you state-developed tools to support local wellness policies. We will also list actions that school food authorities can take to renew their local wellness policy for school year 2022-23, and also identify strategies to engage school administration, staff, and families in the local wellness policy. We will also name ways to strengthen local wellness policies based on the triennial assessment finding. One of the many things that South Carolina did when the guidelines came out was to bring together like-minded experts who had a personal and professional interest in the health and well-being of children as a top priority. South Carolina established the State Technical Assistant Team. The purpose of this team is to assist with wellness efforts at the state, local, and building level to create a healthy environment where children live, learn, and play. Team members represent various organizations, and they bring a wealth of experience and expertise in health, wellness, foods, physical activity, and physical education, and policy development. Members are myself. We have Beth Berry, who is an honorary member, who is retired but still a very valuable resource to the team. We have Erica Ears, McLean Borsch, and Molly Mills, and one in retirement, Carolyn Lindstrom. Our team represents state and national organizations such as the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, Medical University of South Carolina Boeing Center for Children's Wellness, the Department of Health and Environmental Control, South Carolina Department of Education Office of Health and Nutrition. The STAT team was formed 5 years ago with its original members. The group's commitment is solid, but an MOU between the partners solidified this commitment. STAT's shared goals drive its success. Its three main goals are provide technical assistance and no-cost resources to allow change agents and wellness champions to create healthy environments. Secondly, to heighten awareness of the status of children's health and the impact local wellness policies can have on changing health statistics and improving the quality of life for families. Finally, provide healthy environments for all children at all functional levels. We are connected and stay informed with regular monthly meetings. We also develop training resources and identify training needs jointly. The State Department of Education has a designated web page for local wellness policies. This page contains resources, online seminars on all segments of the local wellness policy. You can also find sample model policy there, local, state, and national resources to assist with all phases of the local wellness policy. The site contains South Carolina's annual local wellness policy assessment tool, which districts complete in years prior to completing the triennial assessment report. It also has a designated email address for all local wellness policy questions, and you see that website, the email address, on the web page there. Additional local wellness policy resources that are located on the website and are shared with SFAs and wellness policy leaders are the school board model policy, which STAT helped to create using state and federal mandate plus healthier generation model policy. We also have the local wellness policy checklist. It outlines the 10 state and or federally mandated components of the local wellness policy with suggested language and best practices for implementing and measurable goals for monitoring. Also, you will find on that web page tools to assess compliance and progress. The STAT team, thanks to our retired Beth Berry, has developed the District Wellness Policy Annual Progress Report, and this report is due March the 15th of each year when the triennial assessment is not due. When completed thoroughly, this tool helps determine compliance with the local wellness policy requirements. SFAs who complete the annual report can use it to assist with completing the triennial assessment report. Also, SFAs who complete the Healthier Generation Healthy Schools assessment are ahead of the game because they can request a school or district report to complete the TAR. In the future, it is our hope that there will be a South Carolina specific Healthier Generation report that may be used as the assessment tool for all schools in South Carolina. Therefore, schools are encouraged to complete the Healthier Generation assessment tools and resources. The triennial assessment, as you see on the screen, is an electronic and guide training agenda for the upcoming year. We will also look at the results and determine the level of technical assistance that individual school districts need. And then we will identify resources that needs to be developed or shared with the districts, as well as look at existing resources at the local, state, or national level that needs to be shared with districts. South Carolina was fortunate that none of its districts requested a waiver this year. So the STAT developed the TAR assessment that districts completed electronically, which will allow us to gauge the degree of completeness for the 10 local wellness policy components. Just as important are subjective responses for each item on the questionnaire. Feedback, again, will guide our training needs for the upcoming year and will also provide opportunities for other districts that are successful with fully implementing specific areas of the wellness policy to share its strategies with other districts. The TAR, or Triennial Assessment Report, provides a lot of data to help identify areas that need to be further developed. Section of the TAR's written responses varied, as you see on the screen. However, there is a tab that allows you to click on more details, and it gives information on how each district responded, and as well as techniques that they used to be successful and how they met certain requirements. This information will be shared with other districts and used to pair districts that experience challenges in one area with other districts who were more successful in that area. It has been 2 years since the COVID pandemic happened, and districts had an opportunity to fully focus on the local wellness policy. Therefore, it is paramount that efforts are taken to renew interest in local wellness policies and reintroduce the basic principles and requirements of the local wellness policy. Increasing awareness is crucial, as many of the local wellness policy leaders are not in the food service area and therefore need to be reminded of the federal regulation and its impact on our schools. Existing pre-recorded presentations, as the one you see on the screen and is located on South Carolina's wellness policy page can be a part of training agenda and used to provide technical assistance to the districts. In addition to the webinars that you see listed on the slide, there are also courses in Canvas platform, such as vegetable subgroups, smart snacks, and more courses to come. And these courses were developed with our dietetic interns from Winthrop University. These courses are appropriate for teachers, students, and food service staff can use them to meet their professional development requirements. In addition to what we have shared so far, we also want to remind you of resources that can help with the implementation of your district's wellness policy. To help you communicate about your policy, USDA's Local School Wellness Policy Outreach Kit is a great plug and play tool to help communicate with parents and staff about the wellness policy. It can always also be used to encourage broader participation in school wellness effort. The Center for Disease Control also has a Parents Healthy Guide promotion kit that contains great tips and resources for engaging parents as well. In addition, the Alliance for a Healthier Generation provides relevant and timely self-paced courses online. It also has virtual instructor-led events and curriculum bundles at no cost to you. These are just a few of their wellness policy resources, but be sure to create an account when you go on the Healthier Generation site to access their full library of training. Now, let's look at actions to renew local wellness policy in 2022-23. First of all, we need to review the results of the TAR report, or the Triennial Assessment Report, and celebrate your successes and share these successes with senior administration. Some of the things that you can do, there are 10 required components, so you can prepare a report card for the 10 components and rate your performance using a self-rating scale. For example, an alphabetical scale ABC for fully in place, partially in place, or not in place, respectively. You may also use a numerical scale, 10 points for each fully in place item, 5 for partially in place, and 3 for not in place. And if you don't want to use those scales, you can use the ranking for good, fully in place, fair, partially in place, needs improvement, not in place. And you can post these on your website and share with stakeholders and get feedback from stakeholders. Convene a stakeholder meeting, or it can be part of a larger meeting. Keep this tool and show progress over the years. Identify areas of challenges, opportunities, and threats, and then develop an action plan. Consider, what do we need to do based on our triennial assessment results? How do we do this? What resources are needed? And what can help us make this happen? And most of all, get the community and businesses involved, as well as local leaders.
Thank you, Juanita. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Ayers. Again, I'm the school wellness consultant with the South Carolina Department of Health, and I'm just going to wrap up what we're doing in South Carolina with the next few slides. So this one, we need to ensure the success of adopting, implementing, and reporting local wellness policies. And to do that, it's really necessary to engage our school district and school administrators and staff. Families should also be engaged to provide the best support for student health and academic success at school as well as at home. Our state technical assistance team directly and indirectly engages these partners at the state and local levels. We provide sessions at state conferences for professional associations such as the School Nutrition Association, the School Boards Association, the Association for Our Health and Physical Education Teachers, and our Parent Teacher Association, just to name a few. We provide statewide webinars based on assessment results to school district and school administrators and our local wellness policy leads. And we also provide one-on-one technical assistance to individual school districts and schools as needed. We share success stories from other South Carolina school districts and schools, including how they engage families to create a culture of health and wellness. And now I'm going to share a couple of our success stories with you. So the first one is from Richland School District 1 here in South Carolina. They are one of our largest school districts with 46 schools. Each school in the district uses the Alliance for a Healthier Generations Healthy Schools Program assessment to monitor implementation of their wellness policy in their school and the progress that it's made. The school wellness teams at each school then develop and implement an action plan based on their assessment results. They continue this process each year to further develop their healthy school community, and over time, the whole school's culture is transformed to one that centers on health and wellness. A few examples of wellness policy initiatives that the school district has been implementing includes putting school wellness on their school improvement council agendas. This is a great way to embed and sustain wellness in the school. They also provide community fitness events such as fun runs and 5Ks, staff wellness activities, farmers market co-ops for teachers and staff, Go Noodle in the classroom, and salad bars at lunch. And I'm very proud to share that all 46 Richland 1 schools have been recognized and have received National Healthy School Awards from the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. And their goal is to maintain this achievement each school year. The next success story comes from Cherokee County School District, also in South Carolina. This one is much smaller than Richland 1 and more rural. They have an initiative called Fit Together. It's a student-driven wellness initiative created to reduce childhood obesity and to build a wellness culture for all in the community. It's designed to catalyze a culture of health through empowerment and collective action. Fit Together has 3 components that each focus on a different population: Fit to Learn for students, Fit to Serve for staff, and Fit to Prosper for the community. With student-led teams at each school in the district, young people identify barriers to health and well-being and design solutions to make healthier school environments and communities for all. And this is a great example of how youth can be engaged to support the implementation of the wellness policy. And to wrap it up for South Carolina, I'm just going to share a few of our state technical assistance teams' next steps, things that we're focusing on, especially this school year. Like Juanita mentioned, we were fortunate to recently secure some funding to build a South Carolina-specific Healthier Generation assessment tool and report. And this is going to help streamline data collection efforts, not only for the federal mandates around the local wellness policy, but also our state mandates. So ultimately, what we're trying to achieve is to reduce the burden on our school districts when it comes to data collection and to provide us at the state level with better quality data so that we can provide better quality support. We're also planning to develop a wellness policy mentor program so that our school districts across the state can network, provide peer-to-peer support, and share their successes. And as always, we're using our triennial assessment report data to develop learning opportunities based on the needs of our school districts. So again, on behalf of South Carolina, thank you for the opportunity to share. And now I'm going to pass it along to Nicole.
Thanks so much, Erica. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Good. I am the School Wellness Specialist at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Office for Food and Nutrition Programs. So before I get started, just want to give a few thank yous. I want to thank South Carolina, Dr. Bowen Seabrook and Erica Ayers. That was a fantastic presentation. Always great to hear best practices and sharing of resources. And also another thank you to the USDA for putting together this webinar and organizing all of this, as well as the Northeast Regional Office for giving us the opportunity here in Massachusetts to share what we are doing around school wellness. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and jump into Massachusetts school wellness. So here's just a quick agenda for my portion of today's presentation. I'm going to start out with the Massachusetts School Wellness Needs Assessment and how that's really driven our work here around school wellness. I'll then go into engaging stakeholders in school wellness, followed by staying on the triennial assessment track, a couple quick tips for you to take back today. I'll then dive into what we are doing here in Massachusetts around school wellness and the initiatives that we created that were driven by the needs assessment. And then finally, at the end of this presentation, I will be sharing the resources. You will be getting these slides later on down the road, and that will include all of the resources that I'm highlighting today and the links to them. So if I went through something and you missed it, please don't fret. These resources will be available to you in the slide deck down the road. So let's go ahead and dive into the needs assessment a bit further. So let's flash back a little bit, not too far back, but 2018 was a really critical time in kind of Massachusetts school wellness history, for lack of a better term. And in 2018, there was a dedicated group of school wellness coalition members that were meeting and were kind of a bit unsure on what the support they needed around school wellness. And this group was very invested in school wellness, but they didn't want to do anything further until they had a bit more information. And this critical moment and this very important group of people decided that more information was needed, and it led to the development of the Massachusetts School Wellness Needs Assessment. So in 2019, it was decided to conduct this needs assessment. And the needs assessment was going to give us answers to two major things. Number one, the challenges that schools were facing around school wellness. Again, that coalition just wasn't really sure what they were. How can they best help school wellness stakeholders if we are unsure of their challenges? And the second one, the best practices for schools around wellness. So gathering some stories and kind of some quotes around what are some best practices that can be shared around the Commonwealth. So to learn more about this assessment, including a short video of the assessment results, the full report, and the executive summary, there is a link on this slide. And again, this is also linked at the resources. So if you're looking to learn more about the needs assessment, I'll go into a little bit today, but if you're looking for that full report, that's going to be the link that you want to access. But for now, let's go ahead and let's talk about how we conducted this assessment and the results that we received from the assessment. So in 2019, again, this is when we conducted the assessment. In the winter of spring, we conducted the statewide needs assessment, and surveys were sent to schools across the entire Commonwealth. And if you look here on the slide, you'll see that table 3 is actually pulling from the needs assessment report, and it breaks down the survey participants by their role. So we had kind of a large number of people that participated, but that gives you a little bit more information on who exactly participated in the surveys. These surveys were then followed up by telephone interviews, which allowed us to really listen and learn about what was needed in those schools. So again, really learning and gaining information around best practices for school wellness and challenges. So let's take a look now and see what we learned from the needs assessment around challenges and best practices. So one of the major challenges that we found from this needs assessment was time. And that's one thing I really wanted to highlight in today's presentation, and kind of the things I'll be sharing and the resources are really centered around this challenge of time. So one quote that I use very often, and it is from our needs assessment, those telephone interviews, is that the quote reads this: "I think that there are a lot of competing demands for our attention and time. Wellness is one of those things that may fall into that category, with a multitude of initiatives or mandates that can sometimes be a challenge." So when we think about engaging certain audiences or targeted audiences or stakeholders in school wellness, administration, families, teachers, school nutrition professionals, it's really important to keep in mind that their time is limited, especially coming off of the past 2 years when there's just been a lot on people's plates. So this quote and this challenge that we found from our needs assessment really segues into my next topic, which is going to discuss how we can engage these audiences. So I'll now go through a few examples of how we can engage some of these various stakeholders in school wellness. So engaging administration. So this was one of the important groups that we found from our needs assessment, that if administration is going to be on board, school wellness is really going to be put at the forefront. It's going to be really made a priority. But if you don't have this group engaged or involved, it can be put on the back burner, just like that quote was saying from a needs assessment. So it's really important to know our audience here. So when it comes to administration, and these are some things that, really have worked for us, it's academic. So sharing any sort of data that you can that links or shows the strong correlation between nutrition, physical activity, test scores, academic grades, attendance, things like that. Another thing that we find that really entices or really engages our administration is behavior. So highlighting nutrition education and how it relates to core subjects and local wellness policy. How can you add that into the curriculum and really engage students? Or how can you implement classroom movement breaks? And share the link that between those brain breaks, there's actually an increase in attention, and it can decrease any sort of behavior incidents because students have been given that brain break and they're ready after that break to refocus and focus on the academics. A second really important thing to highlight, and I share this as one of my real life examples here, is funding. Anytime I talk to superintendents, I close with, what else do you need? And the answer is often funding. And I'll also highlight too that funding was one of our other challenges that was identified in the school wellness needs assessment. So any opportunity that you can provide, I've linked to here. Again, they'll be in my resources slides at the end, but NFL Play 60 is a great opportunity to share funding. They offer grants throughout the year with their Fuel Up to Play 60 program. And also keep a lookout for Action for Healthy Kids. Depending where you are in the country, they have certain grant funding opportunities that can be related to things around school gardens, physical activity, nutrition. So those are two things that really are important for our administrators. And again, I've linked these resources at the end of the presentation for you to access. So engaging staff, and staff being inclusive of teachers here, classroom teachers, specialized teachers, they're another group that we found in our needs assessment that's very important. So one thing that I'd like to share is incorporating staff wellness into the local wellness policy. Anytime that you're really able to provide staff with wellness opportunities in addition to students is really great because they feel invested in that their wellness is also in your interest. That's also very important. It also is helpful for staff to learn about things like physical activity, nutrition, mental health, etc., because then they're often, if once they learn it, see one, do one, teach one, do it in their classroom, or be modeling as well as role models in the classroom. Another kind of piggyback to that is providing any trainings or professional development around days that focus on staff wellness. This can be a variety of things. It can be just to staff wellness, or in addition, teaching staff on how they can implement this into the classroom. And then finally, my other real life example is peer-to-peer success stories. And this is straight from teachers that I heard this and absolutely wanted to share it with all of you. Anytime that staff or teachers are able to hear about or learn about staff incorporating wellness in their classroom from another staff member who understands their challenges or possible restrictions is really, really helpful. And I recently heard this from a school nurse that teachers love to hear success stories from others. So giving them that opportunity is really important because, again, they understand the environment. And you'll see here on this slide, I have a snapshot of school wellness success. This is an example of a district who is participating in the fresh fruit and vegetable program, and they utilize this cart. And one of the best things about this cart is that they were sharing it with health education teachers so they could utilize it in their classroom and share things around nutrition education, what's in the cart, and how the fruits and vegetables are beneficial. So great example here, again, of school wellness success and providing that peer-to-peer kind of success story and interaction. So another group here thinking about is our families. And families are a great group that is very important to engage. One thing that's really important to think about is increasing access to wellness committee meetings. One small silver lining of this, the pandemic and that we entered this virtual world is that you are really able to engage people now via online. So promoting any wellness committee meetings that you have via your social media, including a virtual option. We work with a lot of districts in Massachusetts that are kind of doing hybrid wellness committee meetings. So they're meeting on Zoom for a meeting or they're meeting in person, but providing that virtual option for anyone that perhaps can't make it on site but can still tune in. Another really important thing is partnering with any sort of state PTA or PTO. This is such a great group to be involved with. You can really hear what families are looking for around wellness, especially around what they want in schools. And there's often opportunities, I know I've done this in Massachusetts, to present on what's going on or what you're doing, or taking some time to explain the local wellness policy and the final rule and breaking it down to this audience and really giving a chance to answer any of their questions. And then finally, partnering with family engagement offices. So this might have a different name based on what state you're in, but either at the state or district level. I know in our Department of Education, the Family and Engagement Office is super helpful, and they have a newsletter, and there's opportunities for us to meet audiences that we might not always get to reach. In addition to that, having anyone at the district level who's part of the Family and Engagement Office join the wellness committee, because they have access to parents and families in a different way, and that can help to get them part of those meetings and help with the policy. And then I will just read this quote again from our needs assessment, the telephone interviews. One thing I found is getting an initiative into a school, if it is not pushed by our main stakeholders, which is parents and kids or parents, it does not necessarily go over well, or it is not well received. And I find this quote to be really important, which is why I included it in there. This is such an important group. So making sure that they're aware and given opportunities to be involved with a local wellness policy and the wellness committee is critical. All right, so let's transition a little bit on how to stay on the triennial assessment track. So 1, 2, 3, I like to give easy things when I'm presenting, and I know time is often something everyone is thinking about, and keeping that in mind with our needs assessment. SFA is preparing for school year 22-23 as it pertains to the local wellness policy. Step number 1, we're getting near the beginning of the school year. It's really important to schedule that wellness committee meeting. Really, we tell our districts in Massachusetts to try to get it in before any sort of holiday break. So that way you can get your first meeting in, and then you can really set up your plan for the rest of the year. Step number 2 is utilizing meeting time as working time, and utilizing that working time to assess the local wellness policy using the WellSat 3.0. And if you're not familiar with the WellSat 3.0, it is a great free online tool that you can use to assess the local wellness policy. We utilize it a lot in Massachusetts because it is able to be done not all at one time, but you can work on one section, you can take a break and come back to it. And we find it's a great tool that keeps time in mind, again, as one of those challenges. And then step number 3, the WellSat does a great job of generating a scorecard based on your assessment results. And you can utilize the scorecard to update your policy. But one thing I like to highlight when I'm going over these 3 steps is, what if you have a wellness committee that's maybe having difficulty with strengthening their policy? They've done the WellSat, but they just haven't gotten around to actually updating their language. On the next slide, I'm going to go over a few tips if you're running into that challenge. So again, keeping time in mind, we've really done that in Massachusetts because we know it's a challenge, is how can we make work shared? So it's important to take these steps to ensure that schools can get wellness policy success. So number 1 tip, utilizing a share drive. So again, how I mentioned that some wellness policy meetings, committee meetings can be held virtually. Any work that can be done virtually is important as well. So uploading a copy of the WellSat scorecard, uploading a copy of the local wellness policy. Again, anything that can allow for folks to work together, perhaps virtually, to make those updates. We've seen a lot of success with the use of a shared drive. It allows for comments and track changes, and again, allows for that virtual work at any time. And then number 2 determining the action plan based on the scorecard. So review the sections that had those lowest scores. If you're familiar with the WellSat, you know that a score of a 0 or a 1 are going to be things that you really want to focus on. For folks that aren't familiar, a 0 means it's completely missing in the policy, and then a 1 means that your language is really weak. So these are going to be your priority updates in the school year. And then finally, one thing that we've also found really important is sharing your updated plan with your school committee and board, keeping them in the loop at the end, depending on the state you are in, if it's a board, if it's a committee, they're going to have to look at it and approve it. So just keeping them in the loop so that when you're ready to give it to them, they're aware and they can get you on that agenda. And again, this can be simply an update in writing. And then finally, one last thing in Massachusetts, I know South Carolina hit on this as well, is sharing out any model wellness policies. So a lot of committees want to see other policies that have been approved by our agency or approved by the state that are in compliance with state and federal standards. That's another really great way to ensure school wellness success. So to kind of wrap up here, I'm going to go into a brief overview of how we are engaging stakeholders and guiding them to our school wellness success. So the Massachusetts School Wellness Needs Assessment led to SWITCH, which is known as the School Wellness Initiative for Thriving Community Health. And SWITCH is our school wellness movement in Massachusetts. And schools across the Commonwealth help to drive this movement. In addition to that, there are some really important partners that I'll shout out at the end. But before we go into that, I want to go over a few of our SWITCH initiatives. So SWITCH initiative number 1, massschoolwellness.org. This is a one-stop shop for school wellness. Our needs assessment showed that time and funding are barriers to school wellness. They're major challenges. So we created a website that would be a one-stop shop for families, administrators, staff, school nutrition professionals, for them to go and to access resources on school wellness. We have a local wellness policy checklist that's really easy and digestible. We provide success stories on there. We have a blog, and we also have a sign up to our What's Up with Wellness newsletter. This is an e-newsletter that we provide school wellness shout outs, updates from the USDA, any state announcements that we have, and it's kind of a very easy, skimmable resource that comes once a month directly to folks' inbox. Our next school wellness initiative that we created is the Massachusetts School Wellness Coaching Program. This is a year-long program intended to help strengthen the school wellness efforts of schools and districts that have an established school wellness committee. And this program, again, was derived from the needs assessment in showing that districts were really struggling around the wellness policy, updating it to be in compliance, and also with then taking the policy and not just having it sit somewhere in a drawer, but actually putting policy into practice. So this coaching program does 1, helps with state and federal compliance, and then 2, it also helps with implementation of the local wellness policy. And again, really putting policy into action is an awesome thing to see after districts are in compliance, because they're excited to then implement it into the schools. Another school wellness initiative that we do is we have social media pages. So again, we found this throughout the pandemic that was really helpful for our school nutrition professionals to be sharing updates on meals and meal access sites. And it's also a great way to engage with our audiences, especially if you're looking to engage with students and families. So here are our profiles. Feel free to follow us. We tweet out and post our success stories, any other updates around, but it's also a great way to share best practices amongst states. So here are our sites as well. And then finally, none of this work would be possible without our Massachusetts School Wellness Coalition. If you think back to when I first started this portion of today's presentation, I mentioned that back in 2018, they were the group that really drove the development of the needs assessment. And they are such dedicated school wellness experts, offering a variety of help between helping to develop our school wellness website, helping to develop content for our social media, providing grant opportunities, providing technical assistance, and they are just incredible partners in this work that we do to support school wellness across the Commonwealth. And with that, as I promised, the next slide shows all of the resources that I mentioned today throughout the presentation. And I want to thank you all for your time and for attending. The next slide has my email address if you are looking to get in touch with me. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Nicole, and hi again, everyone. We'll give you all a moment now to enter any last questions into the Q&A box. In the meantime, I just wanted to reiterate some key points from today's webinar. First, the reason we're here today, local school wellness policies are an important tool in establishing, maintaining, and evaluating healthy school environments that promote student health and wellness. You can renew your policy by identifying a local school wellness policy coordinator to ensure compliance, and by building or re-engaging your district wellness committee, making sure to invite the various stakeholders to be involved, and of course, be sure to spread the word. You can strengthen wellness policy efforts by comparing your policy to a model policy, continuing to review and assess your policy, and by proposing updates to school administration to get their support. Energize your efforts in school community by educating school administration, staff, and families about your policy. Identify wellness champions at each school, and build excitement by sharing examples of how the district is succeeding. Nourish your efforts by meeting your wellness committee several times per year, plan for the triennial assessment, and spotlight school successes. Lastly, don't forget to consult the helpful resources we've provided throughout the presentation from Team Nutrition, South Carolina, and Massachusetts. So with that, let's move on to some questions and answers.
Hi again, everyone, and thanks again to our wonderful speakers. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as we did. I know we are a little tight on time here, so we'll just do one question per speaker. And again, if you in the audience need to leave, no worries. You will get an email once the recording and PDF of this webinar is available. So my first question is to Kim. So Kim, we have a question that says, my state has its own standards for snack foods sold in schools and food and beverage marketing policies. How are they affected by the local school wellness policy?
Great question. The federal smart snack standards and marketing policies are just minimum requirements for schools that participate in the school meals programs. States and districts and schools that have stronger standards and policies can have their own policies as long as they do not conflict with the USDA standards.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, and then our next question is for Juanita and Erica from South Carolina. And someone just asked, how did you get a successful response rate from the districts with completing the triennial assessment report?
Great, thank you for that question. I think what we did, we operated as if we were not going to receive waivers. We provided training, technical assistance, webinars, and provided examples of what a completed triennial assessment report should look like.
Wonderful, wonderful, thank you. And then our last question is for Nicole. And someone asked, I'm an SFA, I'm struggling to get my wellness committee together following the pandemic. How should I get started?
Great question, and you are certainly not alone with this question, but here are some things that I recommend. Send an email to your school nurse and administrator, it can be assistant superintendent, anybody in administration, and a school, either PTA or PTO leader. That's going to give you kind of a good group to get started, and send that email at the beginning of the school year. It will be important to have these 3 members on board, and then from there, schedule a meeting and work together to determine who else should be on the committee. And then you're able to go ahead and have kind of that starting group.
Great, great, wonderful. Okay, so that's all we have time for today, as you all know, but please know that even if we didn't get to your questions, we do still all see them and read them. We also read your comments in the post-webinar survey, so please be sure to fill that out as well. That just helps us make sure that everything we develop meets your needs. We know how busy everyone is, so just wanted to say thank you again. And we will actually look forward to seeing all of you at our next Meal Talk webinar, which will be held in October in honor of National School Lunch Week. Registration for that webinar will open in September. And in the meantime, just keep an eye out for some emails from us over the next few weeks. So thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.